For most of human history, survival depended on hunting. Today, if you want food, you grab your phone, order online, or walk into a supermarket. But for Native Americans, hunting was life itself. No guns, no modern maps, no high-tech gear. They relied only on the land, their bodies, their senses, and knowledge passed down through generations. And here are 5 extraordinary ways they hunted without guns, maps, or modern tools. At number 5 comes persistence hunting, one of the oldest and most brutal hunting techniques. Instead of killing animals with a single shot, native hunters used the one advantage humans have over almost every creature on Earth: endurance. Most animals can sprint faster than a human, but very few can run for hours without overheating. Native hunters, especially on the plains and in deserts, would track a deer, elk, or even a bison and chase it relentlessly. They ran not for minutes, but for hours, sometimes an entire day, following its tracks, reading broken grass, disturbed soil, and subtle patterns in the earth. As the animal tried to escape, it would sprint, then stop, then sprint again. Eventually, it would collapse from exhaustion and heat. That's when the hunters closed in, finishing it with a spear or bow. The key here wasn't weapons. It was knowledge of terrain, stamina, and patience. They knew the rhythm of the land and the weakness of their prey. Imagine running barefoot or in moccasins over rugged ground under the hot sun, tracking an animal so closely that you could feel when it was about to break. That's not just hunting. That's turning your body into a weapon, proving that survival doesn't come from the tools you carry but the knowledge you hold. Hunters planned persistence chases carefully. Scouts found the game and marked waterholes, and runners rotated so the pursuit could keep going without collapse. They used shade, wind, and ponds to mask scent and force the animal into long, tiring moves. Persistence hunting was a test of stamina, timing, and small group coordination. But if persistence hunting shows endurance, number 4 shows intelligence and strategy. This was communal hunting, where entire groups worked together to outsmart massive animals. The most famous example was the bison hunt on the Great Plains. Bison were enormous, weighing up to 2,000 pounds, with speed and strength that made them nearly impossible to take down individually. So native tribes developed hunting drives. Dozens of hunters coordinated to push herds toward a trap, sometimes into a narrow canyon, sometimes into a corral built from logs, and sometimes over cliffs known as buffalo jumps. At these jumps, hunters disguised themselves, waving hides, shouting, and creating chaos, funneling the herd into panic until they stampeded off the cliff. At the bottom, waiting hunters finished off the injured animals. This method was efficient and brutal, providing food, hides, bones, and sinew for the entire community. Nothing went to waste. The humiliation here was not for the hunters but for the bison creatures, so massive and powerful, brought down not by a bullet but by intelligence, teamwork, and psychological manipulation. The beauty of communal hunting was that it turned survival into a ceremony. Entire tribes depended on these hunts, and the strategies were refined over centuries, showing how brains could overpower even the mightiest beasts. Drives required timing, practice signals, and roles. Decoys, flankers, finishers. Hunters studied seasonal migrations and weather windows, preparing corridors and drive lines months in advance. The communal hunt was as much social glue as food procurement, with rituals and sharing rules ensuring every person benefited. And if teamwork defined the hunt on the plains, stealth defined the hunt in forests, which brings us to number 3, stalking and disguises. Native hunters were masters of camouflage, long before camouflage clothing existed. They learned to blend into the environment, moving silently, every step calculated. Deer, elk, and smaller game had sharp senses. They could hear a twig snap or smell human sweat from far away. So hunters adapted. They rubbed themselves with mud, leaves, or the scent of the very animals they pursued. Some wore wolf or coyote skins, creeping closer by imitating the movements of predators. Others carried shields made of animal hides, walking low to the ground until they could get within bow range. It wasn't just about hiding, it was about becoming part of the environment. Every sound mattered: the crunch of snow, the rustle of grass, even the rhythm of breathing. Hunters trained themselves to move slower than the wind, to wait for hours without flinching, until the moment was right to release an arrow. This was hunting as an art form. A single mistake meant the animal vanished, Success required patience so deep it blurred the line between human and animal. Camouflage also meant scent control and silence. Moccasins softened footfalls. Ritual breathing techniques reduced noise. And hunters learned to use terrain shadows and animal blind spots. Many practiced calls and predator gestures, drawing the game into predictable reactions before the final strike. Yet stealth alone wasn't always enough. Number 2 takes us to the most ingenious techniques of all: traps and tools created without metal, maps, or machines. Native hunters built snares, deadfalls, fish weirs, and nets using only wood, stone, sinew, and bone. In icy northern lands, the Inuit carved harpoons with detachable tips connected to sealskin lines, designed to tire out whales and seals. In wooded regions, hunters dug pit traps lined with sharpened stakes, covering them with branches and leaves. Small animals like rabbits and birds were caught with snares made from twisted fibers. Even fish weren't safe. Tribes built stone walls and rivers that guided fish into traps, or wove baskets that caught them as water flowed through. What's remarkable is not just the variety, but the precision. These tools were engineered with a deep understanding of animal behavior. Snares were placed on rabbit trails. Deadfalls were baited with scents animals couldn't resist. Fish traps were built in seasonal migration routes. Every trap was a silent hunter, working even while the people slept. Without guns or modern factories, Native Americans created technology that was perfectly adapted to their environment, showing that survival didn't require industry, it required wisdom. Trap crafting was a technical art. Adhesives from boiled bone or plant resins, braided plant fibers, and sinew for strength, and trigger systems that balanced sensitivity with durability. Timing mattered. Fish weirs aligned to spawning runs, and pit traps were placed on known travel corridors, making traps an extension of seasonal ecological knowledge. And finally, at number 1, the most extraordinary skill of all: tracking. Hunting without guns or maps was impossible without the ability to read the land like a book. Native hunters became master trackers, able to see what others could not. A bent blade of grass, a faint print in the mud, a broken twig, even the flight of birds in the distance. All of it told them where animals had passed. They didn't just see footprints, they read stories. From the depth of a hoofprint, they knew if the animal was running or walking. From the spacing, they could tell its size and weight. From the freshness, they could tell how long ago it had passed. Tracking was not only about the eyes, but also about intuition. They listened for changes in the forest's silence, felt the direction of the wind, and tasted the dirt to sense how dry it was. It was science and spirituality fused together. To outsiders, it seemed supernatural, but for native hunters, it was a learned skill passed down from elders to children. Without tracking, persistence hunting wouldn't work. Communal hunts would fail, stalking would be blind, and traps would be useless. Tracking was the foundation, the invisible map in their minds, allowing them to move across vast territories without ever needing paper or compass. It was the ultimate proof that survival depends not on modern tools, but on knowledge of the earth itself. Tracking grew from a lifelong apprenticeship. Children learned to read animal droppings, follow scent lines, and watch bird behavior. Elders taught how moon phases and seasonal growth patterns shift trails. These mental maps let hunters move confidently at night and across territories where no paper map could help. These 5 skills: persistence hunting, communal strategies, stalking with disguises, ingenious traps, and masterful tracking, show how Native Americans thrived without guns, maps, or modern tools. Modern gear may make hunting easier, but it cannot replace the land wisdom that guided these people for generations. Their methods were survival, science, and spiritual practice in one, and they remain extraordinary.